Are Formula 1 and the FIA doing it all wrong? Have they changed the cars too much, so that instead of more overtaking, they're once again prohibited to overtake? Are these cars too reliant on the use of DRS? And will we ever see a full season of excitement without unnecessary crashes again in the coming years? For now, it seems that Formula 1 has lost its ways as the Azerbaijan Grand Prix has let down fans and drivers across the globe. Baku's Formula 1 race thrives on the track's ability to generate mayhem. When that critical component is lacking, the outcome is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in 2023. The races here can be wild, because they rely on flashes of insanity to turn the Grand Prix on its head. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix is nothing without it. This was exactly what we saw this weekend, where it was possible to drive for 50 laps on the same tyre without any disadvantage. That's not to argue it's a horrible venue for a Grand Prix. It's beneficial to have a variety of tracks with varying obstacles and levels of danger. If F1 only had flawless racetracks, it would undoubtedly skip half of its season. Baku is a nice addition to the calendar, since it has its own factors that might spark a race. Setup issues are created by the contrast of long straights and extremely tight corners. The walls are particularly harsh, and the circumstances are frequently demanding. A low grip surface but warm temps and usually a lot of wind. Some tracks are uninteresting and lack most or all of these elements. This breeds errors throughout qualifying and the race. However, there's no guarantee of this. Sometimes the stars just don't align in the right order, as was the case here. As George Russell commented after a race, he described as a line astern. I don't know what it was like behind, but from my side, it looked like there was no overtaking. There wasn't much, as this race was characterized by opportunistic maneuvers at restarts and significant speed discrepancies, allowing for DRS drive-bys. The one big error in this race, Nick de Vries's pretty light off that resulted in a retirement, occurred at an inopportune moment to affect a few spots and certainly had a role in Sergio Perez's victory, but it did not necessarily change the conclusion. And aside from costing Max Verstappen the lead, it appeared to annoy a few drivers. There was no safety car restart, no red flag, nothing that saved lackluster races in the past. It was more like the race's first edition in 2016, which was negatively welcomed. A Grand Prix doesn't have to have hundreds of overtakes to be exciting, but there should be the chance of anything occurring. Basic strategic intrigue is insufficient. Finally, this generation of F1 car is unsuitable for street tracks. At least that is a conclusion we can make after last season and the first two street races of this season. However, Baku cannot be blamed for the race's dullness. Perhaps there was an oversight prior to this event, with the DRS zone being so short. I don't know why they did that, wondered Lewis Hamilton. We had great racing with where the DRS was. By the time you switched the DRS on, it was too late. Was there a lot of overtaking today? Hamilton inquired. He was told no. Well, there you go. He wasn't the only one who thought so. Kevin Magnussen said, "It certainly didn't make any sense for it to be shorter." Last year's placement, according to Alex Albon, was about correct. In Friday's driver briefing, Lando Norris stated that all the drivers questioned it. They didn't want to make a change? Norris was asked. No comment. Norris said with a smirk. It's possible that if the DRS zone had existed in its prior form, the number of simple, boring overtakes would have increased. At the very least, there would have been movement in the field in that scenario. But on the bright side, it could have been the catalyst for a few genuine passes. The difference between drivers being stuck and being able to take a chance. It definitely took a little bit of the edge off you in the braking, McLaren team chief Andreas Stella believes. If you are like 5 to 10 meters closer, you can try and attack, which for us was impossible during the whole race, so certainly for us it would have been welcomed. What the FIA and F1 have to look carefully at is this year it looks like it was generally more difficult to overtake, possibly not only because of DRS, but because of a little less slipstream effect. Stella mentions a troubling tendency coming from the class of 2023 that is undermining attempts to enhance racing in general. There have been several reports of cars becoming more difficult to follow the technical regulations revision last year, and even of the slipstream effect becoming less evident. The cars are harder to follow, if anything. The DRS zone should be the same or even longer, Magnussen explained. Albon concurred. As the load is coming onto the cars are getting harder to follow. It's not as good as it was before, and then the slipstream hasn't been as good as previous year's cars. That's where you're seeing this DRS train. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix in 2023 was almost as terrible as F1 can go in Baku. What's worrying is that it might be the start of a trend that affects a variety of different races. What do you think? Will we see more races like this, where the cars are just following each other like a train? A race where you just know nothing will happen unless there is a crash. Would you even watch races like this? Let us know in the comments down below. The drivers certainly aren't a fan of it, because after a disappointing Azerbaijan Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton has questioned the FIA's decision to limit the primary DRS zone at the Baku City circuit. The race in Azerbaijan's capital is frequently entertaining, but Sunday's Grand Prix, which came after a preview of sorts in Saturday's sprint, failed to catch the imagination with minimal overtaking possibilities. Prior to the weekend, F1's governing body decided to shorten the DRS zone on the main straight by 100 meters, but it quickly became clear that this decision harmed the spectacle, even though Max Verstappen and eventual race winner Sergio Perez passed Ferrari's Charles Leclerc in this zone. In the latter stages of the 51-lap race, Hamilton crept down on Leclerc's teammate Carlos Sainz, but was unable to make a move in his Mercedes, despite being within DRS range on many occasions. The 7-time world champion was heard over team radio seeking additional engine power, and was asked whether this was due to a fault. Hamilton informed journalists, "Nothing went wrong, I just wanted more power. A driver always wants more power." Ultimately, they shortened the DRS this year down the straight. I don't know why they did that. We have always had great racing the way DRS was. By the time we turned DRS on, it was too late. Mercedes slipped further off the pace in Azerbaijan after Hamilton's second-place performance in Australia, before the spring break fueled hopes of a comeback. But after finishing behind both Red Bulls, both Ferraris and Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin, the Briton admitted they, Ferrari, are a little bit quicker on the straight than us, even with the DRS on. He was fast down the straights, and even just following through the mid-sector wasn't so easy, but I gave it everything. It's clear to see that the drivers weren't happy with the DRS setup for last weekend, as multiple drivers just couldn't pass. This resulted in drivers hoping for the race to be over as soon as possible. As Lando Norris confessed, he thought the Azerbaijan Grand Prix would come to an end soon after 20 laps in what he considered a long race. The McLaren driver began from P7 on the grid, but was stranded behind Nico Hülkenberg for much of the day, after completing a pit stop shortly before an early safety car period, with a Haas on a different strategy. Norris passed Hülkenberg in the closing moments of the 51-lap race and ended in P9, a result he believes was the best the team could have hoped for. "It was a long race. 20 laps in, I was hoping it was the end already," said Norris. "We were just unlucky that the safety car came out a lap after we boxed. We didn't really lose places, we simply lost to the two cars that had to stop, Hülkenberg and Esteban Ocon. It probably didn't have much of a difference, but in terms of just going out, I guess maybe I probably would have been in no man's land if I was ahead of them, because the rest of the guys would have cleared off. So we were in a bit of race of our own in terms of pace, I would say. We got a good couple of points, that's the best we could have asked for today, so I have to be happy with that." And if this wasn't enough criticism for the FIA in Formula 1, they surely will receive it after that awful almost crash on the last lap of the race, as Esteban Ocon almost smashed into a wall of people due to the stewards releasing the FIA personnel early on the last lap. This has caused Red Bull team principal Christian Horner to ask the FIA to police its processes properly. Alpine driver Esteban Ocon had completed the race on a single set of hard tyres before pitting at the start of the last lap to execute his mandated tyre switch. However, with race winner Sergio Perez nearly a lap ahead of the Frenchman at the time of his pit stop, the pit lane had begun to fill up with FIA personnel preparing the Parc Fermé hold for completed finishers, as well as members of the travelling media cohort. As a result, the individuals jumped to safety as Ocon entered the pit lane, narrowly missing collision with others who were blinded by the swarm of people around them. The FIA has acknowledged that a review would take place, while race stewards have called officials from the governing body to a hearing. Addressing the incident when speaking to the media, Horner explained, "That is something that needs a review because Esteban is within his rights to pit on the last lap and finish the race in the pit lane if he wanted to. That is something the FIA needs to police a bit better before the end of the race." Did Formula 1 get it all wrong in Baku? Have they made the wrong decisions? What are your thoughts on the race? Could you stand this race where it was possible to drive 50 laps on a tyre and keep other cars behind you? We'd love to know. Let us know if you think Formula 1 is going in the wrong way or not. Thanks for watching today's video, and we'll see you in the next one.